Okay, cool. So we're recording now. As we shared before, we'll plan to make this public with the intention that we'll be talking about things that'll be valuable to other people. So that's really the idea, right? That we can leverage our time not only to create value, between us and within Hope and Action, but to expand other people within Hope and Action. As we were just talking about, if Jen's not able to make the meeting now, she can watch this. If some other chapter or national organization wants to watch this, they can understand. So that's part of the whole, philosophy of this all, as I'll share with you more. But just to set the expectations that we'll plan to make this public. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And also to provide context about that, I'm not sure if we'll make it public immediately. You'll be able to share it privately immediately if you want. But it kind of depends. I'm not going to get into it too deep today because I want to focus on open action and where you're at right now with things and provide as much value as I can. But just to provide a little bit more of the context so you understand where I'm coming from. As I shared with you, I'm preparing to take this leap to the national and international level to share, some of the types of things that I'm going to be sharing with you today and further evolutions of it. And I mentioned just a little bit, I mentioned it more to Jen. I haven't been providing this type of support for anyone for a while now because I've been in this gestation phase for myself, this spiritual evolution that I've been undertaking really for the last 9 months or so. And you'll understand it much better the more we talk because you'll start to tune into the fact that we are always infinitely powerful divine beings. We talked about this a little bit,
Mhm.
and it's really just a matter of how much we're able to let that infinite power out, right? And especially when you're, leading an organization as you are, when you have dozens or hundreds of infinite powerful beings, amongst your midst, what can get created then? It's really quite extraordinary, right? And
Absolutely.
quite extraordinary compared to where we typically operate as humans, right? Like the vision of what is possible when you imagine infinitely powerful beings coming together is far beyond what we're typically able to manage in our material world. And that's part of why I've been working on this so long, both the internal work more recently so that I can embody infinite power and I can come to you as an infinitely powerful being, and so that I can teach you guys how to be it as much as you are able to. And as I shared before, the previous years I spent working on developing the technology that can support us to actually be able to embody this infinite power, right? Because the tools that we have right now, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, these types of tools that YouTube that are our primary vehicles for interacting with each other right now, we're not designed with the intention of like unlocking our infinite power. And we all find a lot of real solid limitations in the tools that we have compared to what we would like to do if we could just like wave our magic wand and make it all work, right? So again, I'm just sharing this with you because it's important for you to get where I'm coming from around all of this so that the things that I'm saying makes a lot of sense because we're going to talk in this conversation that you and I and Jen and whoever else joins is starting right now. We're going to talk about creating a world that doesn't exist right now, essentially. And we're going to be moving ourselves from the intention of that world into the application of that world. And we're going to start to use the tools that we have available right now, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, that sort of thing. But we're going to quickly evolve to some higher level tools as soon as, we start evolving in that way. But, we're grounded back into the today. We'll focus on where we're going, into the future, and we'll build a bridge to get from where we are to where we want to go with a lot of very, specific strategy, ways things need to be financed, ways resources need to be applied, how people can be applied, where, priorities are, how we're going to be shifting attention, all of those sorts of things, right? All of that goes into it. And I know you guys have been doing a lot of that. And like I said, I honor you and Jen and the whole team, everybody that's been involved, because you clearly are doing a great job for the amount of time that you've compacted it into as you were sharing it with me. So I really appreciate, what you guys are doing. And I want to, first create the context of I honor you. I honor you for your success. Yeah, I honor you for your efforts, for your success. By no means do I want to, come across as like you guys can be doing a better job. It's more of
No, I
like
mean, that's
it's
exactly why we, like connected, and we are a very new group. This is a very new situation for a lot of us. And Hope and Action has kind of been thrust into, like this position, this role. And, I think a lot of groups right now in Broward are being are developing, and everybody is trying to create, that um optimal group for themselves and try to like network and get out there and kind of distinctify what they're doing, what each group is doing. I think like on a general basis, a lot of people in the population just they don't really care on one sense. They're like, just let's get this done. And so we get a lot of, misinformation. Oh, you're the group that did this. You're organizing that. Oh, no, we're not. That's a different group. There needs to be some clarification on the different groups as well and what each one stands for. With Hope and Action, we are new. We have done a lot of events and hosted some things where we are literally like not even 10 people. We are 8 core members, and we have been busting our booties to, make sure that people are safe, that we have a safety team, that we have all our legal observers, that, like our places where we are hosting has insurance, stuff like that. Just making sure that we have police liaisons, all of that good stuff, but it's not enough, and like you had mentioned, we do need to use our tools efficiently, wh- like I said, we're 8 people. We're doing all of this kind of on the side, beside our regular daily lives. You saw earlier in the video, my daughter is like back here. I school her, so that's my job as well. And all the other ladies, they have their daily jobs. So we're doing this kind of on the side, and we need so much more help. And that's where you come in, Jared. So yes, we do need help.
Thank you for putting it so clearly there. And that's great. I really appreciate that. And one of the things I mentioned in the WhatsApp message to you is, and you guys already clearly started doing this with the surveys that you distributed at the meeting last week, which was really great. Because you're, working on identifying all of the resources that you have in your resource pool. And so that's a really important part of this, as you know, because you guys are like, if we can only just start putting these resources to work for us, then we can have more hands, on the job. Um, what is it? More hands make lighter work. So, um, but then again, you also realize that if you all of a sudden have, 100 volunteers and all of those volunteers need to be coordinated and the 8 of you already have your plates full, it's like, who's going to start taking on coordinating all these volunteers, right? It's like, as much as you get resources in your hands, then it becomes a job, so to speak, to manage those resources and to do something with those resources. And now who's going to be doing that, right? So it really is a big, catch 22 challenge, right? It's like you want to grow, but there's only so much you can grow while it's 8 of you that are kind of trying to do everything, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so that's, one of the first things I'm going to mention. And actually, before I even start getting into anything, there's 2 core principles that I operate by that I want to share with you, and I'll share with Jen, when I get a chance, or she'll watch the video. But this is really important with anybody that I'm going to work with, because as I shared with you, this has been a really, deep um, spiritual journey for me, and really connecting with, infinite source and receiving a lot of information and guidance. The more we talk, the more you'll get how this is coming, not from inside of my brain, but from a higher power. And I don't know how much you tap into that yourself, but as we go along, you'll see. And one of the things that I've been made aware of is that it's really important because of the high value of what I'm putting out into the world and the path that I'm on in terms of going up to the highest levels of our planet as quickly as possible. That the way that my time gets governed is by where I can create a positive feedback loop. Okay. And I'm going to explain what that means. But I'll keep using that term as you hear me talking with people anew, because for me, the positive feedback loop is where I provide something of value. I'm going to create value for you and Jen and the whole group just through our conversation and wherever we go from here. Okay. As you guys have been creating value for the whole group and everything through your efforts that you've put in, right? As we put out effort into the world, and as we have really high standards for where we devote our time and our energy and all of that, and if it needs to be on the highest levels, then we need to have something coming back to us in order to keep giving more to that, choice amongst all the choices that we have. When we have, as I do, have a mission of using my time and energy most valuably as it can in the world, then I have to keep elevating myself to higher and higher and higher levels of positive feedback so that in theory, and this is, I believe, very possible with your group, I hope you'll all embrace the concept, not only for me, but for yourself. I think it's a great concept for you and everyone to live by. Because you also, again, you can see from the time that you've already put into the group, if you're not seeing results on the ground, if like it wasn't doing anything, like if nobody showed up at the meeting and nobody showed up at your demonstrations and those sorts of things, at some point you would say, I'm not getting enough out of this for the time and energy that I'm putting into it. I need to put my time and energy into something that's going to get the results that I want, right? So again, what I'm doing is I'm establishing a bar, even though we can't see exactly where that bar is yet. I'm establishing a bar with your organization that I need to see enough results, enough feedback, enough positive feedback returning to me from what we're doing in order for me to keep devoting more and more into this container of my energy. Otherwise, it'll be other places that I'm putting my time and energy that will be giving me that positive feedback that my attention is naturally going to go into those directions. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Your daughter is the perfect example of that, right? That like she's your main positive feedback loop right there, right? Like everything else has to measure up against your daughter. Like if it's not providing enough value over here, I need to go somewhere else because I got, you get what I'm saying? It's,
Yeah.
and this is, in my experience, it isn't talked in the world currently in terms of these positive feedback loops, but this is actually a foundation of our society going forward. And that's why I'm sharing it with you now, because these systems that I've been working on, they're going to run on these positive feedback loops. Like everything that you're going to be doing, you're actually going to have measurements. You're going to be able to see on your scoreboard, how much positive feedback you're getting from all of your energy and resource outputs that you're putting out into the world. And then you're going to be moving resources, you're going to be moving time, you're going to be moving finances based on what's being most productive for you and what's not. You get what I'm saying? So that's where we're going as a society. And I'm just establishing this with you now. So I just want you to understand, Jen will understand, the rest of the group will understand that this is how we're going to work. I'm willing to pay it forward, so to speak, because you guys have already paid it forward. I see that. I see the value of what you've put in here. I'm inspired by what you guys have already done. I'm willing to pay it forward into this pool of resources to share a bunch of information, a bunch of wisdom, a bunch of ideas about what we can do together in the short term. And then over time, we'll all just see, although I'll talk about more specific mechanisms, as we go forward. But you guys will definitely be wanting to send some value Jared's way so Jared can spend more time with us, more this, more that. You get what I'm saying? And we'll create that for you guys too, because I think there can be and should be, and this is my opinion in general about everything, but especially with Hope in Action. Um, the whole volunteer concept has gotten a bit skewed in our society. It's become almost like a martyr concept. Like volunteers are volunteering until they're run dry, basically, and then they just can't go anymore. But typically, most volunteers, if they were receiving more positive feedback, and let's just call it being paid for their work, for just simple, um, if a lot of those volunteers were being paid even, minimum wage for the work, just to be putting money in their pockets and putting hour after hour after hour after hour into something, they would be able, most of them, be able to find more hours and more hours and more hours because it's feeding them. It's putting groceries in the refrigerator. It's doing other things that they need to get done, fixing their car, right? So the fact that we as a society somehow are stuck in this system where instead of feeding those places that are feeding us the most by creating this positive feedback loop with them, we're just most of the time, most organizations just stay in. We're all volunteers. We don't have money here. We're just doing it out of the goodness of our hearts and that sort of thing, which is all great, except that it severely limits where you can go, as infinitely powerful beings. It severely puts a cap on what you can do within an organization if you don't have those types of mechanisms in place. Okay.
Are
And
you
it doesn't,
suggesting we get paid?
if let me use you as a specific example. If you would be able to put more hours in during the week or more, whatever it is for you, more concentrate, whatever it is, then yes, I think that of the, hundreds and soon thousands of people that you already have in your resource pool, that there's more than enough pay for you and everyone else on the core team and layers beyond that. And if not, I mean, certainly the wealth is here on a local level, and certainly the wealth is there on a national level. But yes, this is what I'm suggesting is what we talked about, using our resources efficiently and effectively to get the job done. There's so many people that want the job done that you're working on that have resources that would be willing to put those resources in play to get the job done, that we just need to connect the dots. And it's just not intelligent not to be connecting those dots.
Mhm.
What is going to get the job done is connecting the resources with the resources and creating results on a higher and higher level. So yeah, absolutely. That is one of the things. And again, pay is just an easy way to look at it. For not, not everyone is going to want pay. A lot of people are going to want recognition. Like, I'm willing to give you $10,000 if you make me the sponsor of this big event and everybody knows how generous I am and how awesome my business is, right? So, they're not looking for pay, but they're looking for recognition. They're looking for a story. They're looking for a video that they can post on Facebook about how awesome they're being in the community, right? So, and there's a wide range of exchanges, right? But this does get down to, the second part that I mentioned in the message that I sent you, is the resource acquisition, organization, and deployment, right? And so, yes, absolutely. Um, I heard I I heard Jen, mention it when she got up at the meeting the other day about, we don't have a pool of resources, we're all doing it as volunteers, I saw you guys, hoping to get the minimum there at the bar and that sort of thing. So I understand, where you guys are operating from currently on the financial side. And yes, my strong, strong encouragement and the support I'm willing to provide is to support you guys and kind of totally flipping the script on that and saying, like, what kind of budget can we actually amass based on the resources that we're all tapped into and the greater resources within the community, and how can we start to play a game of working with the most resources that we can instead of working with the least resources that we can.
How would you say that we do that?
Well,
How do we
It's
know? I
to
mean,
be,
we have our, donation link. We have our fundraising has started. I don't exactly know where you mean start at the highest because where would that highest be? How do we know what that highest is?
well, you're going
Hmm.
to work your way up, but what I'm suggesting in the highest as an example is let's say that you guys could choose to set a goal, a fundraising goal over the coming month of we want to raise $1,000, or we want to raise $10,000, or we want to raise $100,000, or we want to raise $1 million. So, or $10 million. You guys could choose any one of those. In your meeting, you could just decide, what sounds reasonable. And maybe at this stage, like $10,000 would sound ambitious, for your organization based on not raising, much to this point. I don't know if you guys have, but I'm just saying. Um, but my suggestion is instead of setting your goal at $10,000, set your goal at $1 million. Okay. Same organization, same people, same everything. Okay. But the actions that are in alignment with raising $1 million are much different than the actions in alignment raising $10,000. And it creates a whole different expectation of what's happening within the community as well. By the way, I apologize I didn't mention this up front, but I'm going to have to get off pretty soon, actually. So I know
That's
there's
okay.
much more. I know there's much more we want to go. I knew we were just going to start at the beginning, but let me answer your question just to kind of give you an idea. So the first thing around that is what are you going to do with my money? Right. And that's if you're asking somebody who has the money and would be willing to donate, let's say $10,000 or $100,000, based on if they feel like they're going to get an appropriate return of what they want in their mind for that money, that's where it comes down to you guys setting intentions at a higher level than where you've been at as well, right? You haven't been like even thinking about raising $1 million because you have no idea where you would even put that at the moment, based on what you guys are doing, right? So it's kind of charting a course to the future of like, if we had $1 million, what would we be doing with it? But it also kind of comes back down to the lowest level. So let me kind of fill in the gap a little bit. When we talked about managing all of these resources, the the solution in my mind is along the lines of what you were sharing with me the other day when you were talking about, if you want people to do something, you have to call them up and walk them through the steps. Now do this, now do this, now do this, right? And then they'll do it. But if you don't do that with them, then they're not going to do it, right? So that's part of the build out of the organization and part of the devotion of the resources is essentially to build almost like an army structure, a hierarchical structure, right? With generals, lieutenants, sergeants, foot soldiers, all of that. And you have this structure where, the orders, so to speak, come from the top and go down the line. But then down the line, you've got all of these foot soldiers that are trained to do their job and will do the type of job that you were describing, walking their friends through a process, right? So there's people that, that could be their job every week, is that every week they're walking 5 friends through some process. Okay. But what that process is going to change week by week. And what that process is going to change based on is based on what is the big thing that we're working on right now. And what the big thing that you're working on right now is going to be determined by the highest intentions and aspirations that you have meeting the resources that you have available to achieve that big aspiration, right? So this is again where one of the first things, for us to do, for what I'd like to support you guys with is, and I don't know if you've ever been a part of this before, but almost, and I don't know if that needs to be a full day, but I would recommend probably at least 4 hours or so, a half day of like a visioning intention setting amongst your core team, where it's all kinds of brainstorming and everybody's throwing everything out and everybody can lay everything on the table. And you guys can kind of get a sense by the end of that of what your core intentions are as a group and, what you would do if you had $1 million or $100,000 or $10,000. It's like, what can we do as a group? What do we want to do as a group? Where do we want to grow to? How do we want to grow? and I also want to put it quickly in the context of not just as a local, but as a local, as a model for all the other locals around the country, right? Jen mentioned how there's already been some recognition of you guys, right? That to be featured amongst the national, which is amazing. Congratulations on that. And, so again, what everything I'm describing to you, you already get a sense of, the way my mind works and the way I'm working on things is I'm not doing all of this just to be able to create results here in Broward County with you guys. I'm doing all of this with you as a model, while we're recording as a model of what can be done in every locality around the country and around the world, and not just for Indivisible, but for every organization around every issue. Again, it's I shared with you, I won't get into it deeply again, but I shared with you how, I saw the Women's March and I saw those millions of women march. And then I was like, okay, great. Now what organizational structure is going to be used to organize and to really, take mass collective actions on a regular basis? And again, because there wasn't any structure that I could find at the time, I began building it. And it's many years later, and I've, as I shared with you, I put the building on the shelf to grow internally enough to be able to hold the energy for actually being able to use these tools on a national and international level. So right now, in terms of your organization, I think it's vital for some kind of visioning session like this so that as a core team, you can be really clear on your core values, your core intentions, your ambitions, your roadmap that you're creating towards the future. And there may be some people out of that core group that just aren't in alignment, what most of the other people in the core group are interested in. And you might find that there may be some shifting and maybe some people are going to opt out and all of that, sort of thing. And that's part of the process, as an organization where you have to put your intentions of the organization above, the personal connections with people. And you have to say, if we're in this to create results, we have to do what it takes to create results. And that means setting really solid intentions as an organization that we can get behind as a leadership team and that we can move forward with power. And then as you're moving forward with power, you can already see, just from what I've said already, where you're going to have people just showing up with money to support your efforts when you're starting to go to this level of power internally without even knowing what it is that you guys are going to be talking about. You get what I'm saying? Like we're going through a process of building the internal power of your organization by core intention setting and getting on the same page. And then again, all of this will be recorded. All of this will be shared with the public. Now, all of the hundreds of people in your mailing list can start to watch this and start to get like, holy cow, these are my people. These people are committed. I want to work with these people. I want to this. I want to that. And you get the only difference there is you having that media content for people to get what you're all about or not. And when you don't have that media content, then it's hard to create the inspiration, the motivation, the resource allocation, all of that sort of stuff. Because for them, the only way that the organization exists is in the emails that they receive or the social media posts or what they hear at the events. You know what I'm saying? So what we're doing, so I'm going kind of bullet by bullet through, what I shared with you before. First is intention setting, okay? So that you can be solid in your core and your power as an organization. Then from there, it's the resource acquisition, organization, and application, which again, we'll get into more over time in terms of the specifics, but you guys are already doing it with your surveys and that sort of thing, and your division of responsibility amongst your core team members. Then the third is the media production. So again, recording your meeting like you had the other day, recording this meeting, recording the vision session, the intention setting session, having people, and I think you're already doing this already, have people share their stories and share those stories. There's all kinds of different ways to start using media to expand your presence as an organization and your ability to reach people as an organization, because the content is what goes before you. People get to know you, by the content library that we're going to start creating for your organization. You get what I'm saying? So it's another really core part, because again, that extends you guys beyond. Now you don't have to be on a Zoom or on a phone call every time. You can just ask somebody to watch that video of that Zoom that you made last week, because you would just say the same thing to them. So you don't have to spend time with them now. Again, efficient and effective with our time. So that's the third. And then the fourth is the social media, leveraging, optimizing along the lines of what I was just saying, putting this content out and engaging with people and using it as your presence out in the world. So, those are the core ways that I see supporting you guys, right now in the short term. And obviously there's deep conversations around each one of them, multiple conversations around each one of them, and even more. So it is a lot of, time that I am willing to put in up front with you guys to be able to help you create results and allow you guys to be a model of success for, for everyone out there. And, it's also, again, a matter of us figuring out this, dance of all of us. We all have time limitations. We all have energy and limitations. So how are we going to, rearrange what we're doing right now to kind of fit all of this in the midst of the protesting schedules and the networkers and whatever else you guys are already planning, right? So we'll just kind of be in the flow about it. But this is me setting the table for, what I see I can support you guys with. As you said in the beginning, we could use your help, Jared. So does this sound like ways that you would be interested in my support?
Personally, yes. This is something I'll definitely bring back to the core team. I'm going to relay it back to them, see what they all say. Um, I think there's definitely a lot of truth in what you were saying. I wrote down a lot of notes here. Um, there's a lot of things we've talked about. We haven't necessarily made our, um, roster like you have, but I did write everything down. But we definitely have touched on a lot of these different aspects. And yeah, I like what you're saying. I like the resource acquisition. I really like that. Our setting intentions, the content library is fantastic. Just all of it is great, and I'm going to relay that to the core team.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Any questions that you have or anything else you want to share or talk
Um,
about in a couple minutes?
Honestly, not at the moment. I mean, I do have a lot. I have my kiddo here screaming at me from the back, so I'm kind of like in the same time commitment you are right now. But I'll write them down. I'll ask the core team, and then I'll send them back to you.
Perfect. Sounds great. Awesome, Juliana. I'm glad we got to connect. Again, I honor and appreciate all that you're doing, all the results you're creating, all the effort that you're putting in. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jared, for hosting here. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, sounds great. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.